This is your economic review. You're watching a business. Joining us in the studio to take us through the entire conversation on what is really the biggest headlines that you're waking up to this morning. We're joined by the CEO, Miradi Capital, Abraham Muthoko. Now, today, the president is expected to address the nation on the state of the economy 1 year after the first case of the coronavirus pandemic was reported in Kenya. The virus, which has already infected 110,356 people in the country as of Thursday, March 2021, with 1,898 cases reported as of Thursday as well, saw the economy fall into recession last year, with the rate of unemployment and joblessness rising to an all-time high. Even as the country gets ready for the president's national address today, the Ministry of Health has already advised the president not to relax the COVID-19 measures in the country, as recent infection data indicates that the country is already in the third wave of the virus, with a positivity rate never seen since the virus was reported in the country. Let's take a look at the story by Rosemary Kinyanjui this morning before we get into the conversation this morning.
To see where we are going forward and the measures that we must take.
It is this statement, coupled with the latest statistics on COVID-19 in Kenya, that have set the tone for a new round of restrictions to curb what the government has considered to be the emergence of a third wave of COVID-19 infections. Kenya's positivity rate for the last 4 months has remained well below 10% until March. Experts say this is attributable to increased political gatherings in the last few months in the run-up to various by-elections, as well as to drum up support for the BBI referendum bill.
Personally, and from a scientific basis, I would say the political gatherings and activity have contributed much to the sharp increase in the number of cases.
It is against this backdrop that the Council of Governors recommended a cessation of all gatherings of political nature.
The Council, in consultation with the Minister of Health, is urging the President to halt all political gatherings for the next 30 days in order to flatten the curve.
Sights of Kenyans walking around with little care for basic COVID-19 guidelines such as wearing masks could also be compounding the prevailing upsurge in COVID-19 cases. Despite the growing number of confirmed COVID-19 cases, a cross-section of Kenyans are hopeful that the president will relax restrictions such as the curfew hours during his address on Friday.
As per my view, I think the curfew should be extended because we really have to care for our people.
Jangu nifikiri president atachukua hatua ya kusave life of Kenyans.
Asijaribu tu kufunga hiyo kitu, akifunga wananchi tutarudi nyuma zaidi.
Ile kitu tunaomba asifunge uchumi, at least aweke tu restriction, lakini asitumize sana kwa sababu uchumi umeanza kurudi.
Hata akiweka curfew kuanzia saa 6 hivi ama saa 6 mpaka saa 10 itakuwa vizuri.
And so the president is faced with the task of balancing between enhancing measures to stem the new wave of COVID-19 cases while allowing Kenyans to continue eking out livelihoods. But just what are the president's options?
A decision that His Excellency the President makes tomorrow must ensure that the national examinations are not disrupted, extending the curfew time to 8 rather than 10 or maybe 9. Then also the places of bars and restaurants where are also another opportunity of spread. Making pronouncement on social gatherings, especially the political gatherings.
Businesses have started to struggle. There is a real risk of too many people falling behind economically, which will have grave social consequences. And the logical next step must be to remove curfew restrictions and allow businesses to get back onto their feet.
And as the country prepares to mark 1 year since the first case of COVID-19 was reported, it appears the country has gone full circle in its fight against COVID-19. All eyes and ears now turn to what President Kenyatta will announce in his 14th address to the nation on the COVID-19 pandemic. Rosemary Kinyanjui for Metropole TV.
Thank you very much, Rosemary Kinyanjui. Just before we cross over to Abraham, let's now look at what the effect of the coronavirus pandemic has been on the economy. And therefore, we're going to go and look at what has been our quarterly GDP growth. And you can actually see that there was that negative 5.7%, which drove the economy into recession. And we're still waiting for quarter four numbers to see the optimism that was expressed on the growth of our GDP in quarter four up to where we are right now in 2021. Looking at the employment by age, again, you can actually see that we shot up, especially within that special group of 20 to 24 to 30 to 34 as well, because this is where the employment numbers are not high. Now let's compare then those numbers by figures. You can see 2019 we were at 5.2%, but in 2020 we jumped to 10.4%, which is going to be expressed again by the numbers as well, which are almost double. Whether this is corrected or not corrected as we started in quarter three, up to where we are right now is still yet to be waited for as we wait for those quarter four numbers of 2020. Abraham, is he still in the same state that he finds himself when he called for the first curfew back in March 2020?
No, I think he's in a better position now.
Yes.
I think he has the benefit of data for a whole year.
Yes.
And basically he's looking at two things. He's looking at how do I stop the current upsurge in COVID infection. On the other side, how do I stop the economy from sliding any further down? Now, it's a very, very tricky trade-off. And I personally would not wish to be him, because today he has to make a decision what to trade off against what. Because it's strictly speaking, to some extent it's a trade-off, to some extent it's not a trade-off. But what is for sure is that we must keep the economy alive, even if it at a very low level, but it must be alive, stay alive, and we must stop the downward slide. Number one. Number two, we have to find out why it is that the COVID is spreading. So and the experts are telling us it's because of maybe social gatherings and whatever it is. That's not my area of expertise. The experts know better.
Yes.
But whatever it is that they tell him is the cause of that upsurge in the COVID, I think that's what needs to be addressed. As for the curfew hours, if that helps that situation, so be it. But to the extent that that affects the economy is what we need to see. How far can we stretch without killing either side? Because if you overdo the economic side, we might affect the pandemic side.
Yes.
And if you overdo the pandemic, the measures for the pandemic side, we might hurt the economy.
Yes.
So to me, I think it's a very, very strict trade-off. And the advantage he has of all of us is that he has data. He has experts before him. So it's a matter of listening to all the options and then taking a decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about exactly where he finds himself right now when it comes to the economy. I mean, he's quite aware that the taxman is even struggling for collections.
Yes.
We've had other reports that even pay as you earn has dropped exponentially because of the job cuts and salary cuts that have gone within the economy as well. Are there businesses, Abraham, from where you're sitting this morning, where if indeed we continue to extend this caveats wall, that are going to be wiped off the face of the economy?
Yeah, for sure. The business that will not survive.
Yes.
Based on what we're trying to do or the dispensation that we've gone to. Look at the airline industry. Look at the hospitality industry.
Yes.
Look at the entertainment industry. Look at the events industry. Those industries are suffering. Why they're suffering? Because they're in the space where people socialize. So anybody in the space where people socialize is in a catch-24, because in any business is about volume, and now when you talk about COVID spread, we're working against volume.
Yes.
So you see they're at cross purpose. That's why you'll see most companies that are in that space are giving either profit warnings if they are listed or are doing very badly. So whether they'll be wiped out, not necessarily, because sometimes you have to adjust to the realities of the space you're in.
Yes.
The ones that may get wiped out are those that may resist and try to and insist on doing business. They were doing it pre-COVID.
Yes.
So everybody has a chance to survive, but that chance only is enhanced when you come to a realization that we are in different dispensation and that you must do the business differently.
Yes. Somebody's going to ask you, Abraham, from this perspective, a year ago, there was this balance of what do we do? Do we save livelihoods or do we save lives? But now, a year down the line, are we shifting towards, well, we got to save the economy, because then you cannot afford to continue saying that you must hit a balance. Because if you hit a balance anymore, then the economy will slump.
You see, if today we
Yes.
were to save one, which one would we save? If today we were told to save one, the reality of the matter is you can resuscitate an economy back to action, but you cannot bring somebody back to life.
Are we at that point in the economy where we can't resuscitate it back again?
No, the economy, whatever happens to it, even if we go to full recession,
Knowing very well that we're accepting recession as well.
We are in recession.
Yes.
So, and probably, I think there's very little any lower that we can go.
Yes.
That is one thing. So we can resuscitate it, and the measures to resuscitate are there. And even if we were to delve into that right now, the issue is that we are suffering from low demand, and that is bringing even low income in terms of collection from KRA. What we need to do now is to sort out our this coming budget must reflect that reality.
Yes.
Because the moment we start going to deficit budgets, we'll not be going in the right direction.
Yes.
Because even the income we are projecting, the coming budget, will most probably not come our way, given the kind of trends we are seeing in the pandemic. Going to the extreme side of the pandemic, once somebody dies, they're dead. They will never come back, and that is the harsh reality of these two issues. If somebody goes, they are gone. If the economy goes down, yes, it can be depressed, it can go through bumps, but it can spring back again. But this guy who's gone,
Yes.
he's gone, and he's gone for good.
Yes.
So it is with that reality in mind that we have to now strike the balance, fully cognizant of what can come back and what can't.
Some sections of analysts are saying, well, you are at that point now where you can't afford to go into recession again, because coming back again is going to take us some more time as well. Is it possible for him to say, well, let's spend that money that we have to get in more vaccinations, vaccinate a lot of people, over this other side, reopen the economy and get that balance now? Is it possible to say, get a balance between the number of people that you're vaccinating right now with an open economy?
First of all, the vaccination, the vaccines, even the availability of those vaccines, like the other day, yesterday or day before,
Yes.
we bought 100,000. That's still a very small number, given the number of, we are 50 million.
Yes.
So if you do that rate, you can see how long it will take us. And also don't forget, the manufacturers of those vaccines can only produce so much. So they're actually behind the demand curve.
Yes.
And then you can see the development of one of the vaccines that has stopped being used. So in that area, we have it can't be a short-term measure. It can only be mid to long-term measure.
Yes.
In the short term, we still have the dilemma.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be in this dilemma for the short term that do we save economy, do we save lives, or do we strike a middle life? I think the whole year, those are the games we've been playing, and I think we have to continue playing them until, yes, the vaccines are enough that if you and I want to do it, I just walk into hospital X and get it. Right now, you can't. Right now, as they're coming, there's a priority list of frontline, then who gets, then eventually they get to you and I. So that reality is that this striking of a balance will continue for a while. And do I have the answer to that? No, I don't. And I don't think anybody does.
Yes. Yes.
But I think if we all sit in a room, collectively in our minds, thinking about our country, thinking about our people's lives, I think we'll get a solution.
Pretty much. All right, let's wait to see exactly what the president is going to pronounce. Remember, it's been exactly 1 year since we announced the first coronavirus case in the country. Let's have a look at exactly what the data has been in the last 24 hours, where we're coming from. And if you look at that, then you're going to see the new cases have been at 829, sample tested 6,239, positivity rate of 13.3%. That's where the talking point is. Total cases so far in the country at 111,185. Now remember, those double-digit COVID positivity cases are exactly what the talking point is. New fatalities 1, and the cumulative fatalities now at 1,899. Now, the Ministry of Health is advising the president not to relax. In fact, they're saying if we can tighten them further, is that what we're bound to see in just a couple of hours when the president announces the new pronouncement on COVID-19, or are we bound to relax? Why is the balance going to be? For us, is to wait and see. Moving on, the Treasury is planning special tax for the super rich in the country as it bids to find sources of revenue to fund the 2021-2022 budget amid struggling revenues in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as a tough stance from the Budget Committee for the Cash Office to reduce its budget deficit to less than 7% of the country's GDP. In a piece covered by the Business Daily, Treasury Principal Secretary Julius Muea told journalists that the possibility of introducing a wealth tax was among reforms being discussed. He said, and I quote, "We are looking at physical changes that will go into finance bill, and we're in discussions over the wealth tax among many other physical reforms to boost revenues." End quote. The idea to have wealthy individuals in the country pay higher taxes was floated back in 2018, but failed to gain momentum after strong opposition from concerned parties. It is not yet clear how the Treasury is planning to move on with this measure this time round, with the number of Kenya's super rich having dropped during the COVID-19 pandemic, which disrupted businesses and led to a loss of many livelihoods, relying on tax to get out of revenue wars in the country. Is this a good move from the Treasury Office? Just before we cross over to that, let's look at exactly what has been our annualized deficit in our budget, which is exactly what makes the government go into this. And then you can actually say that, well, on a compounding level, it has been increasing as well. Let's cross over and also look at what has been our expenditure trend that leads to the government lacking all this money. You can actually say that all the way from 2015-2016, which can go back further, is exactly that trend that we're talking about this morning as well. Fantastic. If you look at our debt again, which is exactly how the government really tries to address that deficit, then you can actually say that banking institutions in the country are the ones that are the biggest in terms of wow, we have been accumulating that domestic debt. And Richie, this morning, if you can also give us tax to GDP, which is now going to form a better part of our conversation this morning, because it seems as if Treasury thinks that this is where the magic bullet is going to come from in terms of addressing that revenue issue. Now, Abraham, a lot of we've already had discussions on exactly how revenue issues in the country are really befalling the Treasury Office. Yeah. Let me begin from that. Is that the best move in them trying to open avenues for revenue for the taxman?
See, are we really opening a new area? First of all, by definition, for you to be in the top 1% in this country, you only need to have 2.2 million shillings. Only. And I say this only with a lot of respect.
Wait a minute, you gotta say that again. How much is it?
2.2 million shillings.
2.2 million shillings, then you're already in the top percentile.
Top 1%, yes. So when you talk about wealth tax,
yes,
which wealth people are you talking about? You must be talking about very few people.
Yes.
Number two, what is the definition of wealth? When you say wealth, what really are you talking about? So to me, I would not waste my time in that segment. I would go the other way.
Yes.
There's so many people who are not paying taxes in the SME space, in the personal space. Let's spend our time there. But if we start going to definitions of who is wealthy and how wealthy they are, given that only the people are 2.2 million are already paying taxes. So that means you have to go maybe the top 1% of that 1%. I mean, maybe it's the people they're talking about.
Yes.
And I don't think that will yield much.
Yes.
And again, these are the people who have the ability to go around taxes because of the kind of money they have. So let's go the other way around. Yes. Let's find out why are only 4 million people filing returns in a country that has about close to 25 million adults.
Yes.
What is the problem? What are the other 20 million people? What are they doing with their money?
Yes.
Let's find those people out. And then let's grow our tax base by making sure that everybody who needs to pay tax is paying tax. Let's see, can we lower the threshold of tax to a level where people feel comfortable and responsible enough to pay it? Let's uncomplicate the tax process. and the tax regime and the multiplicity of taxes, of tax laws, and the duplicity of them. So the tax regime is simple to understand, is affordable, and is easy to do. That way we have more people joining. But now when you start going into this to me this route, they are at liberty to do it because they have the powers to do it.
Yes.
But I don't think it's going to yield much.
Yes.
So as you can see already, we're talking about qualitative terms. We have not, because if you want to go into law, then you must define how a wealthy person looks like.
Yes.
But I've just given you a grim statistic. The 2.2 million puts you in the top 1%. So that's an area that will not go far. So I think let's turn this around.
Yes.
Let's go down instead of going up.
Yes.
Yeah.
But how complex is it? Because there's that conversation that we've always been having, like, well, most people in the country will not be in the tax bracket. They have been trying to address that. Is this in the short term? Do you think so, that we need a short-term solution? Because you can actually see the budget committee told them, well, we're not going to approve anything that is more than 7% of the country's GDP. So they're looking for short-term solution. Do you think that this would give them anything in the short term?
No. You see, first of all, we're in a crisis.
Yes.
In a crisis in the sense that we are in a place where we've never been before.
Yes.
I think right now we should be thinking of doing two things simultaneously. Trying to grow the revenue on areas that are practical.
Yes.
And also cutting on our expenditure. And our expenditure being, looking at the two main items, public wage bill and debt service.
Yes.
If we can address those two alone, then the need for more money will greatly be extinguished. Because we are looking for more money because those two elephants are growing.
Yes.
Debt service is growing. Public wage bill is growing. So what if it was in reverse? If it was in reverse, then it means we need less money to go there. And even if we collect the same money we want to collect, then we can put it into development.
Pretty much. All right, we take a little break, a small break here on a business. And once we come back, though, Abraham is going to tell us if indeed we're not going to approve anything that is more than 7% of our GDP in terms of our budget deficit. I was saying correct our spending. But if you look at the tax one side, collection revenues are dwindling. So what needs to be done in the short term? Because indeed, we need that in the short term. Once we come here on a Business AM.